Go deliver the flowers. We're shaking. We're like, I don't know what just happened. I'm like, don't say anything. Let's just smile. Everything's wonderful. Get back on that same elevator. Now there's a man on the elevator, and he has like an old 1920s uniform on. So he looked like either an elevator operator or management, or I don't know what he was. So I turned to him and I'm like, hey, something just really happened. Like, we just got off on the 13th floor. Like, what? Look straight ahead. He says, there is no 13th floor.
I just want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for your incredible support. Your Ghost Stories is just over a year old, and we're currently getting around 10,000 organic listeners per month, which is mind-blowing. As most of you guys will know, Your Ghost Stories is a fully independent podcast, and the running and upkeep of the show are entirely funded by myself. To help me continue bringing you these fascinating weekly interviews and stories, Your Ghost Stories is now accepting donations via PayPal. Each month, 50% of all donations will go to a different and selected charity, chosen by you through a poll on our Instagram page on the 1st of each month. The remaining 50% will be used directly to help keep the podcast up and running and expand our reach through marketing. Your contributions not only help us to grow and continue to thrive, but more importantly, will make a difference in the world. You'll find a link to donate any amount of your choice in the description of this episode or via the website yourghoststoriespodcast.com. If you're not in a position to donate, I totally understand. Times are difficult for a lot of people right now, but if you still want to help support the show for free, you can do this by following the podcast on Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen to this podcast, or even better, by leaving us a kind review to help others just like you find the show. Thank you so much for your generosity and support.
Your ghost story. Your ghost story.
So hi Jill, and a big warm welcome to Your Ghost Stories. So I came across your page whilst scrolling through TikTok, as you do, and your videos with you telling your personal ghost stories have over 2 million views, and it's clear to see why, as you've got some really, really interesting stories to tell, which I know my listeners are going to love, so I had to get you on to talk about them, and you kindly agreed, and here we are. So without further delay, please tell everyone a little bit about you, your background, and where you grew up.
I was born and raised from New Orleans. I started hearing things when I was about 3 or 4 years old, and it was just like laying down, in bed and thinking that the TV was on and sitting straight up in bed and realizing the whole house was silent, which I've found a lot of people can connect to and feel like that's when they started hearing and feeling things too. I grew up pretty clairvoyant, but also from a religious family. So it was like many families, just really hushed and not talked about. And so it was kind of just whispers among us. And then, had children and got married and all that good stuff. And again, things kept happening. People like, why do you have so many stories? Well, because I never told them in so long, except to like people who I knew understood me, like my children. When my children started having the same stories, then I realized, well, I need to tell them things because I didn't want them to grow up like I did, feeling like, okay, something's wrong with me. And I think that a lot of people can relate to that.
Wow, what a thing to experience from such a young age. It must have been so confusing for you, having the suppression from religion, so you don't even have the support from your family. You're just left as a young girl, just wondering what's going on and where all these noises are coming from. And I'm sure you wondered, maybe even as a child, was it all in your head, or were these things actually supernatural? But yeah, it must have been so confusing for you.
Yeah. Since I started talking about things, and it's only been within the last couple of years, um, there's been like this lift in my spirit. Everybody has something underlying that stops them from doing different things or having a certain feeling about themselves or having anxiety. And it wasn't until I really started talking about it that I realized, wow, nothing's wrong with me. And this is a real thing. And I truly believe my grandmother and her mother and my father all had this gift. My mother, not so much. Okay. She didn't at all. She was very Catholic. And although she would, when I got to be an adult, she would ask me different things. Oh, heard from grandma lately, that kind of thing. So she wasn't shaming me for it, but definitely people like in church would. And, I, it wasn't when I left the church like 10 years ago and decided that, okay, it's not like I left God. I just left the church that I was in because I think there's a whole nother facet here that people are missing. And I said, yesterday in one of my videos, you know, every time talk about like a place being haunted or something like that, and I'll have different people, and I respect their beliefs. Okay, so I'm not putting this down because I respect what they believe in right now. But people will come on and they'll say, "That's demons. You're worshiping demons." Okay, so yesterday I told a story about a little girl who was being chased by this evil woman. And although we can argue that the evil woman is a demon, how do we argue that the little girl, who is this innocent 6 or 7 year old child, how are you going to sit here and tell me that she is an evil demon, an innocent child? So you have to look at all of this in a different perspective. Are they there to remind us what history was so it won't be repeated? Are they there to teach us a lesson? Because I don't believe that spirits that are still in the buildings, which there are a lot in New Orleans or anywhere where you are there simply to scare the hell out of us. I just don't. It's just, if you really start thinking about it, it's just not possible that, hey, let's all get together and stay in this house for the rest of eternity and scare the hell out of society. I mean, it's not possible. So I think we have to look at other things that might be the possibilities of why these people are still in these buildings and why some of us can see it and some of us can't.
From your experience and being able to communicate with spirits, what do you think happens after we pass?
I think that I believe in heaven. I also believe in different levels. I believe that there is like a level right above us. I was Catholic. So in Catholicism, they call that purgatory. So anybody can call it what they want. I just think that are there are steps. Do I think that, you know, we have like a really wonderful loving God that just says, I love all of you unconditionally, just like as parents love us all, unconditionally. Yes. But I also believe that sometimes things happen in your life and you are sent back to do some work, or you get stuck and you don't want to move on or something like that.
So, with regarding the levels, what could you explain that a little bit more?
I think that there is an immediate level. I immediately feel this beautiful, warm energy from God. but I think, and I did read about this, so this isn't just Jill thoughts, but that for about 9 months to a year, a loved one of ours can kind of stick around and give us, really clear and make sure that we're okay if that's a choice that they want to make. Levels, I don't think that there is like that right above us level, which is what I believe I heard when I was a child. And then I believe that, there is the entry level heaven and then there's the deep in heaven, you've been there for a long time and, you're going to either stay there. I haven't really gotten much into reincarnation, but I have thought about it. I I was told by a Catholic priest that is no longer a Catholic priest that reincarnation was taken out of the Bible. A whole section of the Bible was taken out on that. So I have given some thought to that of, do certain people, come back to repeat to get better, just like they have in other religions and teach about that. Um, I'm very open to, I'm a Christian, so I believe in Jesus, but I also think that he takes other forms.
I have to agree with a lot of what you're saying. So I guess that's kind of my personal beliefs as well. I'm not a religious person, but I do have like I guess faith, or I think we have purpose in life, and there are things we need to do to essentially elevate, or for our souls to elevate, or gather more life experiences and whatnot. You've spent your whole life kind of wondering about um, all the mysteries of the supernatural. So yeah, I'd love to hear some of your stories. You've posted lots of stories on TikTok, and some of them are fascinating. But yeah, please take us back there and tell us some of your favorite stories or things that you've experienced in your life.
I tell a lot of stories about houses that I've lived in. And the stories I don't tell because nobody wants to hear about that are the stories that have been just really peaceful energy and nothing has happened in. So it seems like, wow, lady, every single house you go into, you got a ghost story for it. I do feel like somebody had posted the other day, they said, I think that you just attract this. Like you were drawn to places with a lot of energy. And I think that that is very correct. I have 7 children, so my husband and I did like we kept having to level up to bigger and bigger houses, and so I have lived in different houses. My grandmother's house when I was younger, she was very clairvoyant, and I did feel an energy there, and I know that she did too. And then we really moved around a lot when I was a kid. It had been for sale for a while, and the people who had lived there had not stayed very long. They custom built this house and practically left in the middle of the night once they started living in it. So we were so used to basically being homeless for 7 years as my parents built their business. We were either, sleeping in the car or staying at a grandmother's house. We were just so happy to have a house. So when people are like, why would your parents have done this and stayed? Oh my gosh. It was like, okay, I'll take a haunted house. I don't care. We have a house, we have our own home. But immediately things started happening. Like immediately, like I started hearing things. My father heard it too, but really never expressed things too much. My mother could not hear anything. I have one sister who could hear things. And so that was where I started with all of and then telling my sisters, I'm psychic. I'm psychic. I could, and they would, it was a game. Like they'd laugh at me. They're like, no, you're not. No, you think you're psychic. You think you can look at things and all this other kind of stuff. So after a while, you do between that and religion, you just get really hushed down. So that's where it all started. And then, time moved on, lived in a couple of different houses once I got married, and they were very peaceful. Finally, to kind of tie this up of how all of this continued to happen at my mother's house was after Hurricane Katrina, I moved next door to my mother on the same plot of land. and there was a house there. And I moved to that house, and I immediately started feeling similar things, but worse, that had happened at my mother's house. So, what I figure now is that it wasn't the houses, it was the land that it was built. It was whatever happened on that land that it was built on. And so I went from there to same time period, finding this old house because it was after Katrina and all these places. I'm in the wedding industry, so all these places had closed downtown. So I thought, wow, look at this old place, which by the way, I had been looking at for 2 years. And it was $1 million, and I could no more afford that than anything in the world. Some kind of way, I was like, I have to have this house. I just have to have it. And my husband was like, oh my gosh, please don't do this. Please don't do this. So I took out this, gigantic loan. And again, it was like this house that we bought to do business in called me. And let me tell you, the things that went on, some super scary, other things super endearing. So there was an energy play there, and normally the good energy outdid the bad. Actually, I think the good pretty much protected me. But finally, it really took so much out of me, energy wise and just physically. And my kids didn't want it. That after 13 years, I decided to sell it, and these spirits went wild. They were very angry that I was leaving, and that's when things like you hear about things falling off the wall or sliding across. That's when that kind of stuff started happening. Now I did tell the people that I sold it to that I was like, hey, it's haunted. They're like, great, fantastic. We can't wait for somebody just to say, I don't care, I don't believe in all that. Great, bring them on. I can't help to say that they probably don't feel what I feel. I'm not judging or anything. I'm not judging anybody. I've been judged my whole life, so I don't want to put that out there. Like, okay, let me put you down because you can't feel this bad energy or something like that. But I think it's easy to say when you don't feel it.
Do you think these spirits were angry you were leaving because you were kind of giving them attention? Whereas if somebody wasn't, clairvoyant or couldn't speak with the spirits or see them, then they'd essentially be bored, or what was it about you specifically that they wanted in that house?
I want to tell you something other than to my kids, my husband, my mom, or if employees came and said things to me, I didn't give them attention, but they knew that I knew. This is one of the first times I've said this to someone. I don't know if you saw the TikTok that I did of the little girl in the window.
Yeah, I saw that one. But yeah, for everyone I'm sure a lot of people haven't seen it, so please tell them a little bit about that one.
About a year before, I decided to sell the place, and it was after I had seen that picture of the little girl in the window, and really tried to deny it for a couple of years until it was like, okay, this is undeniable. This is a little girl in the window. I was looking out of that same window, and it was the last original window in that house that was over 200 years old. And so it had that waviness in the glass. And I'm looking out the window, and I thought to myself, you get to leave, but I'm trapped here, just like the little girl in the window. I'm trapped. I owe a ton of money on it. Okay. I can sell it for more than I owe on it. I am trapped in this house and weighted down spiritually, and I'm just weighted from all of this. It was just too heavy. It gotten too heavy. So I think that it was a place where people could just come in for not people, spirits could just come in for the day. These aren't things I've ever heard people talk about. So it's just in the little head of Jill, and lots of people would probably argue with me and say, oh, you just, thinking that or making that up or whatever. But I found it very strange that after a while, I started getting all of these brides or grooms who had lost a mother. And I started keeping track of it. And at one point, it was like 60 to 70% of people who were booking at my venue who didn't have a mother. And not in all of the cases, but in some of those cases, I felt, that powerful energy, but just at the wedding. Okay. So they'd come, like they came to the wedding. And on every single one of those, there was just this such wonderful, spirited, happy, which, people think, well, it's a wedding. Everybody's happy. Okay. No, they're not. There's all kind of stuff that happens and every wedding's not perfect, but I'm not saying these weddings were perfect, but there was definitely a warmth there. And I started feeling like, okay, these women who have passed are depending on me, and I, like all of my clients, just made sure that everybody was taken care of. I just found that was strange when I started keeping track of it. So I haven't worked at another place or owned another place that I had that experience with, where I felt like it was a place where you had those spirits just for a day, and then they just went on their way. But it was definitely, I welcomed it. I mean, there was no like prayers or seances or anything like that because I'd be too scared to do something like that. But I did always, be like, oh, I know your mother will be with us on that night. And a lot of times they were.
So do you think you were a portal for these spirits to come and visit their loved ones?
I think the house was, not me. So I'm, like I said, I'm not a psychic medium. Okay. I don't do readings. I don't uh, seek anything like that out because it's a huge responsibility when somebody is depending on you because they have that, deep yearning or sadness to speak to somebody who has passed over. And so I really don't want to take that on. I probably could develop that. I don't want to. So anything that comes to me. Like I don't seek it out. I don't try to say, hey, let me tell you about you right now, Jamie. Your grandfather wants to tell you to go fishing next Sunday. I mean, I just don't want that kind of responsibility. But if things come to me, and I'm like talking with somebody that I've been talking to for a while, I will mix it into the conversation. And I do have people sometimes say to me, wow, oh my gosh, you're so intuitive. How do you know that? Whatever. But I'm not like, okay, grandma told me to say it, unless it was, I did say that to my mother one time where I felt like my father had sent me a really, really strong message. And I did tell her that. So, but I don't do that like for just anybody. Like, I don't want that responsibility.
So how does it work for you? Is it like all audible, or is it kind of just this intuitive thought?
So I have a little bit of sight, not much. So sight meaning that I see something in the corner of my eye. Um, uh, Hearing, smell, really strong, which I think I got from my father. Of smells, like sometimes I smell my mother in different places. She passed 4 years ago. And I think that a lot of times we'll have that. If you have that smell, it's when you need it. Maybe you'll smell like a grandmother's perfume or, something that, she cooked or something like that. I think that smell is very underrated as an ability. Um, I have just the intuition of just things in my head. Now, the scary things, and a few of my children have experienced this, and I did experience this at the old house that I owned, was that like in your ear. Um, I've had a couple of scary ones with that, but I've only had that a few times. But everything for me is just something in my head. And sometimes, like when I'm doing like a TikTok or I'm telling a story, something will come out and I don't know that I'm going to say that. And it's something maybe profound that I'm like, oh, that was a really good statement, Jill. But so I definitely think that I have some type of message to meet people where they're at, but I have no desire to do readings. That's all there is to it. I just don't. I think I'm just like a normal person. And when things come to me, I don't seek those things. Does that make sense? So, like, I'm not going to go into like Muriel's restaurant and go into the seance room. I won't even go in there. I'm not going to go do a seance. I had a psychic medium ask me one time, she wanted to come do a seance at my old house, my 200-year-old house. And I was like adamant, no, no, I am not doing that. If they want to bring, something happens, or or I feel like I need to do something, okay, that's fine. But to call them out, that's not for me. I'm not going to do it. And I'm not judging anybody. Some people, that's their thing they want to do, and that's fine, but it's not for me.
I can imagine it's quite taxing spiritually, having to deliver messages and essentially be the messenger or the middleman. So yeah, I totally understand your decision to not want to
Yeah.
pass on those messages. Over the years, have you ever come across anything that you'd consider really like dark energy or evil?
Oh, yeah. Yes. And again, they came to us. I didn't seek that out. I've said again when I'm speaking, if there's a dark energy in a building, then I don't want to look at it. I don't want to look at that building. I don't want to draw that energy in. I don't want to look that energy in the eye. But sometimes, that energy comes to you. Now, people are like, well, just sage the house and be gone, go in the light, bring a priest in. I did all of those things. I did all those things. And it's really easy for people to say, well, I don't know why you even stayed there. Well, one, it's not all the time. And two, when you have a lot of children and a lot of responsibility, and you don't have as many choices to just pick up and leave and just let's leave our home and go sleep on grandma's floor again. If you're not in that position, you can't judge somebody who is in it. I try not to. And so that's why when people will say, to me, Jill, I've been living in this house and things have been happening and stuff like that, I do say to them, get some sage and go around the house and say some All Fathers and be gone, go into the light.
Do you think if we give it power or somehow let it in, that a dark or demonic energy can affect our lives?
Well, you said a very important thing. You said, let them in, invite them in. Honestly, that's why I don't do, like, I'm scared of that, like with seances and Ouija boards and that kind of thing. Again, not judging anybody who is like, I did it and it's nothing happened. I'm very careful to say all of that, and I keep repeating it because I've been judged so much my whole life. But do I think it can affect you if you invite that in, if you let that in? I think it can ruin your life. I think you always have to keep a spiritual energy in front of you. And I've known some really awesome people in my life who have even better, more gifts than I have. And every single time I met somebody like that, they always prayed a lot. Like even if they did readings, they would pray before they did the reading to like block out any, dark energies. But just like in our world that we live in, there are really dark energies and there are really like love and light energies. It's the same. It's the same. So, you know, you don't send your children over to the next door neighbor who is an axe murderer. I mean, you protect your children, and it's the same thing. It's like, no, you protect your children. You always have, you provide that love and light around your children and teach them that surround yourself with God and with positive energy around them, and they will always be safe. And, my grandmother taught me that at a very young age. And I'd say, Grandma, I'm scared. I hear things. And she'd say, Oh, Jill, just say a little prayer and it's going to go away. And she was right. It always did. Might have come back the next night, but,
That's going back to what we were saying. So if you give it fear, if you allow the fear to come in, then it has power over you, right?
I don't see how you can't have fear. I think that's pretty unrealistic if you think about it. I mean, if something happens, you see something, our automatic response is fight or flight. And so if somebody sees a lion, like a real life lion, and they get that fear in them because that's not natural to see. Let's say they saw a lion in a shopping center, right? And you're scared. That's a natural response, okay? Having some kind of spiritual energy, especially if it's a dark energy, is not natural while you're sitting in your house. So your natural response is fear. You can't be like, "Hey, bud, how you doing?" I mean, it's a natural. But I do think, like over time, for me, like hearing things, especially if I'm in the same house or whatever, I'm just kind of like, I don't key into it at all because I'm so used to it.
I watched a story on your TikTok. It was about you were delivering some flowers to a hotel, I think it was.
Yeah. Okay. Completely unsolicited. Like it's probably my most iconic story because I was so taken off guard. It was in the early 2000s, excuse me. And I did over 300 weddings a year at that time, and we'd all split up into groups for deliveries. My son Joey and I, we got the Monteleone Hotel. Now, up until that time, really, people would say, oh, New Orleans is haunted and whatever, but I never really, at that point, I was just too tired to even care or whatever. So it was a really rushed day. We had all this stuff. There's different sets of elevators in the Monteleone Hotel, and we got on the old set, and meaning like original to the hotel. So we get on those elevators, and also at the time, I had no idea that there wasn't a 13th floor in like so many people said, how do you not know that? Well, I'm 60. I know now, but I mean, I didn't know then. And so we get on the elevator, press 14, go up to the 14th floor. Nobody's on the elevator with us. Doors open. Get off. Here we go. This will be easy. You see 1325, 1327. Okay. 1329. I'm seeing some stairs up in front of us. And I also see this little lady with short black hair folding some towels. She has a little cart, so she was cleaning rooms. So we pass her up. We go up these stairs because I'm thinking, oh, maybe the 13th and 14th floor connect. So we go up the stairs. We're like, okay, this is okay. And then we come back down. We ask the lady, hey, what's going on here? Where's the 14th floor? She completely ignores us, completely looks ahead. Him and I are just starting to like grasp, okay, something's really Twilight Zone about the situation. And we're like, all right, let's just go get back on the elevator. Get back on the elevator. Doors close. Elevator doesn't move. Doors open. We look at it. 1425, 1427. Oh, thank God. We're on the 14th floor. There's no lady there. There's no steps there. We go deliver the flowers. We're shaking. We're like, I don't know what just happened. I'm like, don't say anything. Let's just smile. Everything's wonderful. Get back on that same elevator. Now there's a man on the elevator, and he has like an old 1920s uniform on. So he looked like either an elevator operator or management, or I don't know what he was, but he was very stoic, standing, looking straight ahead. So I turned to him and like, hey, something just really happened. Like we just got off on the 13th floor. Like what's, and then it didn't, does it connect? I was like rambling. Look straight ahead. He says, there is no 13th floor. And my son and I are like looking at each other like, okay, so we get to the bottom, we step off, I look back, he's gone. So completely unsolicited, complete surprise. I find it fascinating that people have said to me, I just started talking about it last year because right after that, my husband got shipped off to Baltimore, but then we had, Hurricane Katrina, and our whole lives were just like turned upside down. So it like went in the vault. It's kind of like, we're not going to talk about that. And then like last Thanksgiving or the one before, my kids were talking to me. We're talking about different things that have happened in the different houses that we've lived in. And I said, don't get me started on the Monteleone. And my son was like, we're not talking about it. We're not talking about the Monteleone. And they were, of course, like, what happened? What happened? And so I told the story. Now, I want you to know, Jamie, that I just told you that story, and that's probably only the 10th time I've told it in my life. Like, I just don't tell the story. And now, of course, I've told the story on TikTok, so all these people know about it and ask me about it. But before that time, we really put that in the vault because it was scary, but it was so bizarre that it was unbelievable. So then people have come and said, oh, okay, the 13th floor story. Oh, that was in a movie. Oh, it was in a book and this and this and this. I'm like, I honestly, again, that's why it stayed in a vault so long, because you're always going to have people who are going to come out and say, oh, one of them was, oh, that's from Zach and Cody's show. I'm like, what's the Zach and Cody show? I don't even know what that is. So, I mean, I can only tell like my truth and like things that have happened to me. And sometimes it clicks with people and they're like, oh, wow, thank you so much for saying that because I thought I was the crazy one. Or, I can only say what has happened to me. And then people can believe whatever they want. But the reason why I say on TikTok, here's a story no one asked me to tell you, but I'm going to tell you anyway, is because I've been silenced for so long. I have been told, oh, stop, shut up, stop, by so many people. Like, okay, nobody wants to hear all that, or you're against God, or you're, whatever, or just really turning white and walking away from me. And so, you get tired of that response. And then finally this year, I turned 60 in May, and I was like, you know what? I just really don't want to shut up anymore. This is going to be my year. I'm going to tell my stories. And if that's the way that I give back in my life, because I have always tried to give back, that's the way I give back, and it helps somebody, then so be it. So.
I'm so glad that you've managed to find your voice, over the course of 60 years, suppressing all of that. And
I can't believe that that's where I found my voice because I have so many other things I could talk
hmm,
about. I mean, so many other things. Like, it's a complete surprise that people want to hear about this. It really is. Like, okay.
I mean, with over 2 million views, yeah, people are absolutely loving these stories that you're telling. Would I be right in
Yeah.
saying that your son, Joey, he is a complete skeptic, right? So he saw what you saw in that hotel on that 13th floor, but
Hmm.
he denies it, right? Is that right?
He did. He that day was kind of like he knew it happened. And then, like I said, I brought the story up, and it was Thanksgiving, and so I'm sure it was one of my kids, and they're like, "Come on, Joey, did that happen?" And he goes, "It happened. It happened." And I talk to him. I talk to him every day. I talk to all my kids, and he is a Mardi Gras float artist. That's what he does. And I said, I'm going to show up to the float den one day, and I said, I'm just going to knock on the door, and I'm going to have my camera on, and I'm going to say, "Hey, Joey, would you please tell everybody that the Monteleone story happened?" Because honestly, without him as a skeptic, it's a pretty bizarre story. And so to have him as a rock solid, not at all like, my daughters really are the most like clairvoyant like I am. My sons do have it too. Um, but to have him, if I'd had one of my daughters, it would have been a story we would have told a million times. But because it was him and he was in high school, I didn't want to embarrass him. I didn't want him to feel like if I said something in front of his friends, then they would think his mom was a crazy person or a freak. So he said, let's not talk about it. And we didn't talk about it. However, he's also the one that when I bought that old house from 1790, he worked with me full time for 13 years. And so he was also a firsthand account of different things that happened, um, and all kind of things did. I mean, like we'd walk in and a whole wall would be collapsed, like not just a wall in the house, like a whole side of the house would be down. And it was the craziest thing. The porch would collapse overnight. It was bizarre things that you just couldn't deny something was going on. So once we got our footing after a couple of years and we're kind of like, all right, now we're here for peace. We're here for, we just want to have people have a good time. Things really, really settled down until I decided to sell it. But he's a good testament to that Monteleone story and also other ones that, he'll be like, all right, mom, okay, mom, but he was there, so he knows.
I'd love to hear some more stories if you've got the time to share.
I mean, some of these I've shared on TikTok. Other ones I haven't. Personal stories. Um, I'll give you one that I'm going to share today. How about that?
Let's do it.
All right. Um, because you're not releasing this yet. Are you releasing this
It will
today?
actually be out tomorrow. This episode.
Okay, so I'm gonna tell this story today, and then your audience can hear it today or tomorrow. So my parents buy this house, and it was in 1977, and it was a little bit on the outskirts of New Orleans. And immediately we started hearing walking going on back and forth in the house. My father heard it. One of my sisters heard it. My mother never heard it, and the other sisters never said they heard it, so I guess they didn't. So my father decides that it's a beautiful house, but he's going to build this garage because, the house didn't have a garage when we bought it. And so he, gets plans made, and um, he starts, working on getting this built. So, um, one of my sisters um, and myself started hearing things right away. Um, it was a 2-story garage. So bam, 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 going up. It was right next to this big bedroom that we had. You hear them going up and down the stairs all night. So you could think to yourself, okay, somebody broke in. Okay, your brother had some friends over, or the workmen were in there at night. You could think all of those things if it weren't for the fact that we started hearing those things 3 months before they ever even started working on the garage. So, how is that possible? That you have no building there, but already hear somebody going up and down the stairs. So, that up and down the stairs lasted, well into my children becoming teenagers. And I really had hoped that nobody would ever hear it, but all of them, would sleep at my mom's or something like that. And they'd say, "Hey, did did you and Dad come in last night and go up the stairs?" Like, no. So all of my kids who are clairvoyant heard the going up and down the stairs. But I heard it before there was even a building going up and down the stairs. I will say that what's crazy is that when my mom passed away 4 years ago and the house was cleared out, it all stopped. Like we had workmen in there. I was in there every day as they're renovating it and all this other kind of stuff, painting walls and you know preparing it to sell. And I never heard anything again.
So, do you think for some reason your mum was the centre of all the activity?
I don't know.
It's
I don't
strange how
know.
it all stopped, isn't it?
Hmm. I mean, I may go to them today and then be like, "Oh, we got somebody coming up and down the stairs." I mean, they might have come back. I don't know. I don't know if it was the release of my mom's energy or the release of all of us that could feel it, that was now gone from the house, where it was kind of like just all settled. I don't know that on down the line, if somebody else, if another family bought it that had a lot of like clairvoyancy in it, if it wouldn't come back. Um, but I have to tell you, I walked in that house on the last day and I felt nothing. I felt nothing. I mean, it was as clear energy as if I go in a brand new park, you know, that's not in New Orleans and doesn't have a cemetery buried underneath it. The craziness of New Orleans. Um, just to, I can't describe it. It was I felt really good about people who were buying it. I really did. I felt like they were safe and that it was clear. I can't describe that. I think there are things that we can all sit here and guess, and we can say, "I think it's this," or "I think it's that," um, and I don't think we'll ever know until we pass over, and then we're like, "Oh man, this was so easy. Why didn't I get that?" I mean, it was so simple. But what I do know is just hushing people and just saying, if you even have that thought, then you're going to hell, is like telling somebody, okay, you know, you're gay and you're making yourself gay. This is just how I feel. If you're gay, you're gay. You're born that way. I feel the same way about this. I feel like you're just born like that. Like, I think saying to me that I've been told so many times, like you're fooling with, the devil and you're evil and all this other kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'm not fooling with anything. They come to me. Like, I don't seek this out. And I think that I'm the majority. I think most people do not seek this out. I really do. So again, I think that it's I think that it's a way for everyone to just kind of feel like we're all normal. Everybody has different abilities, and we just accept each other and love each other and get through this earth trial as best we can.
I think that's a beautiful final message to finish up on. My final question to you would be, what do you think? Why do you think some people have these abilities but not others?
I think that it's passed down. I think it's windows of different realms, different. I think people have described it as a gift, and I think people have described it as a curse. To be honest with you, Jamie, I think we all have it. I think everybody has it. Like in some kind of way, you just don't know it. You don't know that when you smell roses or something, then it reminds you, it's your grandmother like reminding you of, hey, I used to have rose bushes in the backyard. You know, I think you think, okay, something's in my eye, not something's in the corner of my eye. So I think everybody has some type of intuitiveness, but you're only thinking the dark and spooky, oh, I just saw a ghost. And it is five senses, not just one. We have five senses. And just like in life, we use those senses. It's the same thing with this. Which one do you have? Is it a feeling? Is it a sight? Is it a smell? Do you hear something? Do you taste something? And I think that if people wanted to, they could be more intuitive than they actually realize they can.
Your ghost story. Your ghost story.
Well, Jill, you've been a fascinating and really interesting guest, and it's been a pleasure to talk to you. So thank you for
You
coming
too.
and talking about your experiences. You mentioned earlier that you're thinking about starting a podcast soon, so feel free to tell everyone a little bit about that and where they can come and find you online to learn more.
So, yeah, as you can tell, I like to talk a lot. So I have a lot to say after not talking for a while. Well, I talk all the time, but just not about this. It's going to be under the same name, the Nickle Tree. I it should be sourced out to all of the different places. I'm going to announce that on Instagram and TikTok whenever I have a few episodes up, and some things. I have this whole thing too, Jamie, that, is this just coincidence or what kind of mystery is this? Not just all spooky, scary. And so I feel like the podcast will be a great resource to tell about how things just how they connect, even when it's through generations or something like that, or to show how things connect. So some things, like I said, aren't just they're not all spooky scary, and so I know that's what people like the most, and they like the way that I tell it. So TikTok will probably always be that way, but podcasts will be a little bit longer version of those stories, and then some really awesome stories that might help you in your life about, hey, just hold on, this is all going to connect and everything's going to be okay.
Oh, well, fantastic. I can't wait to listen to your podcast. I'll put a link to your TikTok in the description of this episode. So if anyone wants to go listen to many of your other stories, listening to you chat about all your experiences and everything, they can go do that and they can find out more, I'm sure, in the near future about your podcast.
Okay. Sounds wonderful. That should be up by like next week.
Awesome.
But
Okay.
yeah, I'll shoot you over email. Okay.
Brilliant. Yeah, do it. Do it. I'll share it for you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much.
Well, it's been lovely to chat to you. Thank you for coming on.
You too. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. See ya.
Okay. Alrighty. Bye bye.